Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. My name is Kunle Kasumu and it's great to be on the show. One of the most exciting experiences I have is just walk into a bookshop and pick up one title, pick up the next, and just read. Book reviews help you to sort of have an idea if you want to spend your money buying a book or not. But one of the privileges of this job I do is at times authors just send me titles, so I don't need to go through that. Well, it's fun. So I got this book, Rain Can Never Know. What a title. Rain Can Never Know. But in this case, rain here is not the rain you're thinking about. Rain is actually the name of the protagonist in this book, Rain Tamuno. Now, let me read to you what is written at the back of this book, and you tell me whether it will get you intrigued enough to want to read this. Rain Tamuno is a brilliant young employee in Edozie Express, the largest construction company in the Niger Delta. Befriended by Chief Roland Edozie, owner of the company, she experiences a meteoric rise in her career. As her professional life flourishes, her personal life descends into turmoil. Forced to confront a traumatic episode from her past, Rain cannot come to terms with the fact that her mother chose her assailant over her. As she struggles to mend their fractured relationship, her relationship with David, her boyfriend, is threatened by her best friend, Annabelle. When sudden death occurs amid Chief Roland Edozie's quest for a diabolical solution to a life-threatening problem, Rain's life is put at risk. As her world begins to crumble, she grapples with coming to terms with who her friends and foes are. Rain Can Never Know is an intriguing story of love, lost, secrets, and betrayal. It is about family, friends, and faith. Now, did that get you curious about this? Well, the author is Michael Afenfia. Michael is a diversity settlement and inclusion practitioner based in Canada. He is the author of the novels When the Moon Caught Fire, A Street Called Lonely, Don't Die on Wednesday, and The Mechanics of Yenagua. Well, he took time to read from another book of his. Enjoy the reading from that other book, which he will mention to you. Enjoy this.
Yeah, I'll be reading from Leave My Bones in Saskatoon. Leave My Bones in Saskatoon is my sixth novel, and if I'm being honest, very much unlike anything I've ever written. It's what you will call an immigration story or a Japa story, like maybe the Gen Zs would say. It's a story that starts off in Nigeria with this family having the dream of relocating. Because like they say, the grass is greener on the other side. And so they wanted to experience what life was like on the other side, where they thought the grass was greener. And the family had the plan and, set everything in motion to make the trip. And on the day they got the information or confirmation that their visas had been approved and they would really be going to Canada, something happened in the family. And of course, you have to read the book to know what that thing is, though. But of course, somehow, because the story is set both in Nigeria and in Canada, right? The family is able to make the journey and eventually landed in Canada. And the second half of the story would just go on to show what life is or what life can be for someone who was new to a country, the sort of experiences that they'd have, culture shock, adjusting to the new life, missing home, what sort of relationship and how is the dynamics between those who are back home in Nigeria and someone who might have relocated or jackpad, how that dynamics work. All of the things you hear about life in the UK or in US, Canada, any of these places anyone might choose to move to, all those stories you hear about life there or settling in those countries, are they real? Are they true? If you traveled as a professor, are you able to go back, jump right into being a professor once you arrive Canada or anywhere else you're moving to for that matter? We hear stories of people who are very successful in their countries and then they move to a new country and somehow they end up being cab drivers or cleaners or taking care of the elderly. All the sort of experiences, how true are those, right? So the stories are captured in this book, and the essence, the whole idea of this book is just being honest about what that experience is. Never to say don't go, never to say don't move to a new country if that's what your desire is or what you're destined to be, but just to say go, but be prepared. And Leave My Bones in Saskatoon kind of captures some of the stories that people don't share or people are never free or comfortable sharing about life or living in a foreign country. And so today I'll be reading chapter 32 of the book, and I hope you enjoyed the read. Leave My Bones in Saskatoon, chapter 32. Their conversation about employment and life in Canada continued well into the night. It could have gone on for much longer, but Owoicho noticed Binkwe and Damete yawning and stretching and watching the clock on the wall. So he motioned to Ochanya and they both called it a night. Considering how long they were in transit and how sleep-deprived he felt, Owoicho thought he'd fall asleep as soon as his head hit the pillow, but that didn't happen. 1 hour after he said goodnight to his daughter and turned off the lights in their tiny new living room, he was tossing and turning on the couch like someone whose mind was troubled. Only he wasn't bothered. If anything, his mind was at peace. For the first time in months, he didn't have to get out of bed at the slightest sound from inside or outside the house. Back home in Nigeria, there were nights it felt like he was in the finale of the loudest generator in the neighborhood tournament. Those were the good nights. The bad nights were a combination of noisy generators and the relentless sound of water splashing hard on the ground because some neighbors forgot to turn off their water pumping machine. On his first night in Saskatoon, Ocho didn't hear any of those sounds, and the silence kept him awake. He felt an uncontrollable wave of emotion in a strange and completely unexpected way. The emotion stemmed from not having to wake up angry in the middle of the night because the security guard had drunk too much alcohol and didn't remember to turn off the generator when he was supposed to. No one wanted to waste money on petrol or diesel on the rare occasions the electricity supply companies left the power on and there was no problem with the transformers on the street. Owoicho noticed that the Browns didn't have to barricade their windows and doors with iron and metal protectors. They were confident no one was going to break in to steal from them or attack and kidnap anyone in the dead of night. He would never forget the story his colleague had told him about how his uncle's house was invaded by armed robbers. When they tried without success to bring down the bulletproof front and back entrance doors to the main palatial mansion, somewhere on the outskirts of the Federal Capital Territory, they used some kind of explosive device to knock down the wall of the building. That night, the armed men went away with 2 million naira the man had brought back home from the bank. They also stole expensive jewelry belonging to his wife and all of the phones and laptops in the house. Most importantly, the man's wife and their grown-up daughter, who was home because university lecturers were on strike, a niece visiting from America, and their house help were gang raped by the heartless night lords. After violating them, the leader of the group marched the women into the kitchen where he commanded that they make eba and vegetable soup for him and his men. He was specific about the number of meats he wanted in his soup. According to Owoicho's colleagues, the operation lasted well over 2 hours and the police didn't show up until the robbers left, even though a neighbor who suspected there were armed robbers in the house had called for help. It was hard for Woicho to take it all in that first night. It was hard believing that whenever sleep finally came, he would succumb to it with his two eyes closed, and he needn't ever have to worry again about people scaling his fence and his daughter being kidnapped or killed by bandits. Save for the intermittent humming sound made by the single-door refrigerator in the kitchen area, everywhere was quiet. And because in Nigeria, he might have spent a quiet night like that beside his beautiful wife, talking and laughing about random stuff and discussing the children's performance in school or their future when they finish school, Owoicho missed Ene. He really missed her, Inalego and the twins. Canada was her dream, and he felt like an impostor living in it without her by his side, laughing and talking like he knew they would have been doing on this first night in Saskatoon. But he was in a place of rest and his mind was at peace. His only prayer that night, in addition to begging for sleep, was that things would happen for him and Ochanya like he did for Binkwe and Damete, and in 3 years, or maybe even less, they too will be able to say, like his host said to them during dinner, that Saskatchewan was home.